Welcome in, everyone, to another special edition. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is ayssports. We're here again with our good friends over at ServiceHawk Digital Media and ServiceHawk Digital Marketing, where they soar above the competition. As you can see on my shirt, if you're an HVAC, electrical pro, generator pro, you need to get over to our good friends over at ServiceHawk Digital Media and ServiceHawk Digital Marketing, because I can see, but you can't see, they are absolutely killing it in the game. You can see the Capital One service award right here, helping over 10,000 small businesses with their marketing plan. Get over to servicehawk.io today for your marketing plans. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do something a little bit special when it comes to these episodes here at ServiceHawk Digital Media. If you saw this morning on social media, I asked you a question, whether it be Facebook or Twitter. What is your biggest question going into the game with LSU versus Clemson? We are going to take about 5 or 6 of these questions, and we are going to answer them. To all of you that want to, from now on, start answering those questions or asking those questions, you can. We have taken 6 questions from those on Twitter, from those on Facebook, and we are going to answer them. We're going to give you a shout-out. We're going to give you a call-out on some of these. But I thought it was really interesting to find out what are some of the question marks that you had going into this game. Now, let's start off as LSU does go into Clemson on Saturday night in their Death Valley. I want to go ahead and get one of the questions out of the way, because I posted a question today. Hey, what are your biggest question marks going into the game? And you know good and damn well what people were saying. The number one question from about 27 of you was, what is this offensive line? Now, today in this segment, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the offensive line. We've talked about it a lot. Tonight, when we talk about keys to victory, we're going to talk about it a lot and what I think LSU's got to do to win this game. Look, I will say this, though, about the offensive line and where things stand and where we are. I do not believe that LSU is as good from a talent perspective along the offensive line than they were a season ago. However, that does not mean that you can't be a better overall unit. That does not mean that you can't be a better overall team when it comes to the running game. Guys, the God's honest truth is, and again, we'll speak on this a lot tonight, the God's honest truth is you have to find a way to run the football. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's just the truth. You got to be able to protect Garrett Nussmeier. And if you cannot protect Garrett Nussmeier, a guy that just historically does not want to get outside that pocket, a guy who historically does not want to run, and I do think that he will some in this game, then you're in trouble. Look, I think that their defensive line versus your offensive line is what everybody is focusing in on. I think last year we went into a game versus USC saying, oh, man, we're going to dominate up front. We're going to be able to run the football. And quite honestly, this team got out physicaled. They got dominated in the trenches. Outside of a couple of John Emery runs, you got absolutely nothing going. You didn't really play Caden Durham as a true freshman in game 1, but the problem is that you could not run the football. I know it's all of your questions, but to about 27 of you that asked, I would just say this. I hope that they can hold up. I hope that they can just be average, and you go from there. Maybe we see that they have progressed throughout camp, and it was just not something that we saw, and that they'll be good. Can Josh Thompson, Braylon Moore, the additions in the interior be good for you? I pray to God that it is. But look, it's not like they're going up against scrubs, hashtag TLC. They're not going against no scrubs. I don't want no scrubs. You don't want no scrubs. So, can you be in a situation where that is a big deal? It is the ultimate question. We'll talk about that a lot tonight. But Kevin, let's get to some of these questions here. But Kevin on Twitter @KetsFan says, how will this defense respond to Clemson's first explosive play? It's easy to be confident until you get punched in the mouth. You know, Kevin, I think it's a really interesting question and something we haven't talked about a lot. I do think confidence has been a big issue for this team defensively. I think it's been a big issue for you in a lot of situations and key moments. that when you give up a big play that you just can't shake it off. The pressure for this LSU defense, this pressure for this LSU team, again, how does it mount? How does it translate? I guess is a good way of putting it. Either the pressure that you're under defensively, either it's going to bust you or it's going to make diamonds. Either you have experienced players like Mansour Delane, AJ Hawsey, Tamarcus Cooley, and they're able to shake some of these things off, or you are in a situation where that Clemson hits a couple of big plays on you and you start unraveling. The thing for LSU a season ago that we did not point out a lot defensively is how many explosive plays that you did give up. And I think it's a big question. Clemson is certainly going to their game plan, and what their game plan has been under Garrett Riley. They're going to try to draw you in with a lot of quick passes, a lot of quick throws, and then they're going to start trying to test you vertically. Drag routes are going to be a big deal. Guys, they run a lot of them. And when I think about teams against your defense running drag routes, I think about what Chip Kelly did to Ed Orgeron and company a couple of seasons ago in a week one, and they just kept running drag routes because you just could not defend it, and you got your ass torn up, literally. You got to mentally prepare, and you got to mentally know going into this game if you're a defense, and I hope Blake Baker emphasizes this. Listen, guys, we're going to give up plays. They're a good team. How do we respond on the next play? How do we respond on the play after that? So Kevin asked, Cats fan, how will the defense respond? I think confidence and maturity will show that if they can. Caleb asked on Twitter, has Caleb Jackson taken the next step? Can you get the thunder to the lightning when it comes to this run game? Listen, I think that last season there are a lot of situations, and I know that we broke this down and we showed a lot of film on this and a lot of stuff during the offseason. LSU needed to find a run game, and you kept running out Josh Williams, and God bless him, and congrats to Josh Williams of making the 53-man roster in Tampa. I think what's interesting here when we look at this run game and the running back room, I think they missed a lot of things a season ago. I think that they missed a lot of holes that were created. I think that when you look at the film and you look at Caleb Jackson, instead of going to the right, he goes to the left, and he runs into a wall of defenders, and he's not able, from a vision standpoint, able to find the hole. I do think that I don't think the offensive line, if we're going to be hot takey, I don't think that the offensive line was as bad in some situations last year. I think that you missed a lot of holes in the run game. You look at the all 22 copies, and you did. Caleb Jackson said a couple of weeks ago that, listen, I kind of bought into my own hype a season ago, and we'll go from the, and I didn't live up to what I was my standard. You're going to need him. You're going to need him in these short yardage situations. You're going to be put in short yardage situations. And can Caleb Jackson put his head down and find the right hole and bust one wide open? Because you are going nowhere fast unless Caden Durham and Caleb Jackson both find a way to be very crucial and critical for your team. You're just not going to find a situation or be in a situation where you want to go until you're able to for both of those backs to do what they need to do. If it's 3rd and 2, can you give Caleb Jackson the ball and him put his head down and go get 2 yards? I know a lot's been made of his weight. I know a lot has been made about him. He's got to put his head down and find the right hole. His vision has got to be better. I don't think that you can be in a situation this entire game versus Clemson and Caden Durham have to give you 20 carries. He's got to be spelled because you're going to throw him the ball out of the backfield too. Can Caleb Jackson give you 8 carries for 40 yards? And if he can give you 8 carries for 40 yards, guys, I think you win. Legitimately, I do. Because if you're constantly getting those 5 yards a pop from Caleb Jackson, it's going to set you up for so many different things. I anticipate that Caleb Jackson is going to have a much better year. I hope that vision has done a lot better. All right, a couple more here. JT on Twitter at dat fine friend. That's a hell of an at, by the way. Pause. But JT on Twitter asks, will Joe Sloan actually set up the run adequately in play calling sequence, or will he do a lot of the same that he did a season ago? Listen, I do think to JT's question that play calling and sequencing of play calling a season ago was very inadequate for Joe Sloan. I think that Sloan is in a situation where a lot of people, myself included, are questioning him because he comes from a system of an air raid principle, where he played, where he coached Louisiana Tech. I don't know if he's adequate enough to build off the run game that he needs. I think he needs assistance, and I think his head coach has got to be involved in it. I think his head coach, whether he has a play sheet or not, needs to help Sloan out in what he does. It is of my opinion, and I think it's the only right opinion, clearly, but last year Brian Kelly got involved in play calling, and he had a play sheet on the sidelines. He got involved, and the run game got better. I don't think you can walk that back. I just do not believe that you can walk it back. I think you still got to be involved. I don't think that you can be in a situation where you say last year to the entire world that you don't trust enough in what you're doing offensively to where you as a head coach has to be involved, where you don't now you just walk it back in what might be the biggest game for you for a program. Let's make no mistake about it. This game versus Clemson with LSU could be a program definer of what people believe about you from a national perspective and a local perspective. People look at you and say, what will LSU be in the Brian Kelly era? And I don't think that you can walk back not being not assisting in play calling. How can you do that? I don't think a strength of Joe Sloan is doing and making play calls in the run game. And we saw it a season ago. Guys, there's a reason you were 108th. I don't think Sloan does here's the opposite part of this. Does Joe Sloan not believe that he's got to run the football? I don't think that he believes that. I think he really believes that he's got to. But they abandoned it. They got, with all due respect, a first-time play caller, which is what he was. In a first-time play calling situation, they got timid. I don't think that the sequencing that I've seen, it has been a very massive worry for me of the things that you've tried to do in the run game. And look, man, you have not been able to perfect, and let's not even say perfect. You haven't been able to be good enough in inside and outside zones. And I'm not talking about zone reads. I'm talking about basic zone runs. Why are we trying other things? Why can't we perfect one thing before we move on from this? JT, I would just say this. It is a massive concern for me. I think Brian Kelly's got to stay involved in this run game. And if he does stay involved in this run game, I think it will be a lot more adequate. LSU Hot Takes on Twitter. Ask a question. Big question, Blake, going into the game for me is Harold Perkins actually back? Where did he go? Where did he go? Look, Harold Perkins getting hurt a season ago was a massive deal. And I saw a lot of people say, we got better defensively without Harold Perkins. That's just bullshit. Go back and watch South Carolina. Go back and watch early parts of that USC game. Go back and watch a lot of different things that Harold Perkins, he didn't have the stats. Guys, the film doesn't lie. The fact that Harold Perkins wrecked as much havoc as he did in the games that he played, I think gets missed. The thing with Perkins for me, and I've said this multiple times, we've seen him have massive days at fall camp. Massive. Absolutely massive days. In those massive days, for me, I've said this, I want to be conservative on what we expect in game one, week one versus Clemson, because I don't know if they're not going to try to stretch Harold Perkins out and get him out in space to where you can't blitz him. And if you walk him down the edge, then you know you got to send him. I think they're going to try to take Perk out of the game as much as they can. With that, and in that being said, guys, he's had a massive camp. And I think that the question always is, what is Harold Perkins going to do? What's he going to be? My whole thing with him is simple. He is one of the most athletic players in college football. And you can call him a tweener. You can call him whatever you want. You got to find a way to utilize him because, guys, he's still that athletic and that talented. How do you do that? I want to say yes, Harold Perkins is back, but it's going to come down to how do you use him. These guys with a defense like that Blake Baker wants to run and moving Perkins in at star, the number one thing that you have to perfect that is the guys on the boundary have got to be locked down. They got to be good at man-to-man coverage. If they are, it benefits you. If a safety can walk over a slot guy and you could have a cover safety and Harold Perkins can stay in that star and blitz and be disruptive in the run game, then you're going to be very disruptive. It's what I think what has happened to Perkins here is I think he had a really good sophomore season when they moved him to star. Gus, he had the same amount of tackles he did as a freshman. He had, I think, 6 sacks as a sophomore. Gus, everything around him sucked. The team around him sucked. He didn't suck. Like, you can't say there was the worst safety room that we've ever had, one of the worst defensive lines we ever had, one of the worst play callers that we've ever had, and say that, oh, well, Harold Perkins didn't show up. That's not how this works. I've been conservative in saying what I've seen and just how disruptive he's been. Because, guys, he's been disruptive as hell. He's giving Garrett Nussmeier a lot of problems. He's giving this run game a lot of problems. And you might, offensively, you might stink. And be like, well, no, your offense stunk. You know, I don't know. Is Harold Perkins back? I think that he is, and I think he's going to do a lot of really good things this season. All right, last one before we get out of here. Justin Hill on Facebook says, what wide receiver room will be the go-to team in the clutch on third down situations, and how will we do in the red zone? Well, we can, in reference to the red zone, going back to play calling, you're going to have to show me that you're better at it from a play calling standpoint. I think Trey Green is, for whatever it's worth in the red zone, a mismatch. And I think that we try to overcomplicate things like we did against South Carolina and not getting number 14, and last year not getting Mason Taylor enough in this situation in play calling. Guys, you have mismatches at tight end. And I have been very well vocal on this topic. Guys, I don't think that Clemson safeties are good. I don't. I think that I don't think they're good at all. If what I believe is true, and they're going to walk safeties down on top of tight ends, we've seen teams that busted Clemson wide open last year because tight ends absolutely dominated them. Trey Green is a mismatch in the red zone. And if we start getting cute in the red zone, we start putting on fake makeup and doing fake shit, we're not going to win this game. Get 14 out in space and let him get to work. It can be that simple. It legitimately can be that simple. Can Garrett not turn the ball over in the red zone? And, you know, there have been a lot of questions here about this team. Turnovers is going to be a big one. Can you revert from that too? In reference to wide receiver play, guys, they have a lot of really good receivers. They do. I think everybody's saying that they don't. And yes, there have been LSU fans saying that they don't. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. If you think that they don't have a good wide receiver room, you're an idiot. We've seen them make big plays on third downs. We have not seen Barry and Brown make big plays for LSU on third down. We've seen him do it in the SEC. Can Chris Hilton? Can Trey'Dez Green? We've seen Aaron Anderson? I think that you can. And I think that it can come down that wide receiver room. Listen, if you cannot run the football, you're going to have to implement a short passing attack, which means this wide receiver room, if you're going to win, is going to have to be big and play big. I think that they can. I think they got a lot of speed, and you cannot be predictable. Like, if you come out on play one, and this is how I'm going to know if schematically that we're being stupid. Everybody and their mama knows offensively that you're trying to take a shot deep. Everybody and their mama. Everybody. Why don't you hit some underneath stuff with Chris Hilton, Barry and Brown, Trey'Dez Green to show like, hey, man, y'all want to play off? We're going to hit some stuff underneath. We're going to hit Aaron Anderson underneath. If and when you do that and they walk up and people try to go man-on-man with Chris Hilton, bye. See ya. We're gone. So I think that you have more speed than them. I think that you have more explosiveness than them. Offensively, a wide receiver. Question is, can you utilize it? All right. We're with our friends over at Service Hawk Digital Media and Service Hawk Digital Marketing, where they soar above the competition. Get over to servicehawk.io today. And let them know that Blake sent you on by. We're going to do this every Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to field your questions, thoughts, concerns, and you and I are going to have conversations about it. Until then, we'll see you next week on this, and I hope that it is after a victory over the University of Clemson.